Times best-selling author and speaker, and this is why you should not ever even log on or watch The Reverend and the Reprobate.
You talked about the way that your grandson greeted you, and it seems, especially in listening to your most recent podcast, that there is this sort of rite of passage and ritual that comes along with those kind of encounters, especially generationally, that a father or grandfather passes down to their son or grandson. Why are rituals in men, especially men of the same family, such an important thing? And why are we in sort of modern civilization or modern society, why are we moving away from those things? And how do you think that's hurt us?
Yeah, I think rituals are unbelievably important. First of all, they're a natural part of life. As soon as a child is born, I can tell you with my little 4-year-old grandson, we do anything, he wants to do it the same way next time. You read him a book at 8 o'clock in the evening as he's going to bed. You're now going to read 5 books over the next weeks. It's going to become a tradition. Whatever we do, however we wrestle. And he'll stop me and say, no, Papa, we didn't do it that last time. We didn't do it that way last time. I mean, he'll actually arrange things so we do it exactly the same way. And if I don't say there's certain words that I said last time, like, I'm going to get you, if I don't say it that way, he'll go, no, you're not doing it right. Because he has this code in his soul for ritual. And so we all know that families have rituals, children have rituals. The issue is that in our society, which tends right now to be a little bit anti-tradition, a little bit busting up the old ways, and definitely distracted with screens and media, social media, we are not doing the rituals that make life meaningful. I love the British tradition of tea. Having tea late in the afternoon when the family would come together and they'd have tea. Okay, it may not be my ritual or yours, but it was something regular. It brought people together. It got them talking. I decided to have a Christmas tea every year with my kids. You cannot believe what it's become. Now they've married and we got grandchildren. And the tea every year is, I don't mean to be blasphemous here because we all honor Christmas and all are Christians. So obviously we're about Jesus, but that tea is almost like the biggest thing. Where are we going to be? Who's flying in where? How are we going to pull it off? And it was just something that I created, but it's a time when we talk and affirm each other and talk about the new year and what it means to us. So I believe in manly rituals. It doesn't matter to me what it is. If it's the two of you on your back porch with some brown water, if it's a stogie fest, around the fire pit, if it's the weekly jog with the pizza and beer afterwards so you can check on each other. Whatever it is, I like rituals. I believe in them. I think we should be initiating our boys when they step into adolescence. There's that famous African proverb, if we do not initiate the boys, they will burn the village down just to feel its warmth. Mm-hmm. And that really is the way it is. And that's why I think even street gangs have got initiations that mean the world to a 13-year-old inner city kid. So I come from a military background, as I say. I come from a certain school of theology as a Christian, very ritual oriented in the good way of what they mean and how they affirm. And I'm a big believer in it. I think families can evolve them on their own. I think men should evolve them together. And I think it's part of us reclaiming a healthy, wholesome, godly, masculine culture.
Yeah, you mentioned the African proverb of if the boys don't have anything to do, then they'll burn the city down. Shifting gears a little bit, and I want to tie this into a question about men on fire as well as what we're seeing societally today, that we have a lot of civil unrest on all areas of the political spectrum, and there's a lot of people who have believed that now they are politically homeless. And a lot of the unrest that we believe that we're seeing, and especially in some of the people that we've talked to, is that they feel like they have to fight against something because they weren't taught that. You say specifically in Men on Fire that we have to realize, you write about serving the season that you are in. As men, and we see all of these things that are happening around us, how do we serve in this season as examples of what godly manhood is, in order that our kids or the men that we're banded with in this band of brothers aren't those that are turning to burn down the village right now?
Well, it's a great question. And I got to tell you, I believe that when you're approaching manhood from a godly perspective, you also believe, maybe not in hyper predestination, but you do believe that seasons are ordained for you. Paul said to the Thessalonians, don't be troubled by don't be disconcerted by my troubles. Don't you know I was destined for them? A Christian believes that there are seasons prepared for him, Ephesians 2:10, that there are works prepared for us in advance to walk into or to enter them. So COVID hits, and a Christian, even though there may be sadness, and even though there may be a little bit of fear, a Christian goes, you know what? God knew this was coming. I'm prepared for this. I'm going to step into it. I'm going to own this thing. I'm going to do the right thing, love my family well, be a righteous man in this situation, use my gifts as a man to help others, heal others, strengthen my community, make this a good time. I said at the beginning of COVID on one of my podcasts, you may have heard it, that I expected by the time this was over, we'd have people telling us what we heard from the period of the Great Depression. I have interviewed people who lived through the Great Depression and said the family life, the culture, the richness, our home, our arts at home, our love for each other, the hobbies, the rituals. I never had a richer life later on. It was the best time of my life. Now, that just sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? That the Great Depression of all things would be the best time in your life. But I understand what they mean. They felt closer to people. The family would sing together. The mom would play on the keyboard, the piano, and they'd sing together. And everybody go out and work every day to earn the few quarters they were going to earn. But they'd come back and pool that. And they had enough to eat. And they gave thanks to God. And they'd have joke-telling contests and listen to fun things on the radio. And they attested later it was one of the richest times ever. Well, that's the way it is when you realize you're called to something. You're called to a season. You're ordained for it. This isn't an accident. It's something that I am sent into, and I'm going to own it. I'm going to live it out well. I'm going to live it out in such a way that when it's all over, in a sense, there are parts of this that are my finest hour. Yes, I'm quoting Churchill, that this was my finest hour. And my wife, Bev, and I have tried to live through COVID very much that way, helping people, serving people, giving, trying to be exemplary, trying to help folks, trying to live. So when we look back on the season, we remember that we didn't just tremble on our couch in fear, but that we made a difference in people's lives. And I think all of that is the way a good man, a godly man, approaches difficult seasons.
That's a lot to chew on. Yeah, I think especially here. And I get to work really closely with our local police department. We're seeing as much of this sort of good outcome of COVID, there's people rallying around one another. But it seems like the longer it goes, one of the troubling statistics that we're seeing is that we're also seeing this increase in domestic violence within the home. And a lot of frustration that's happening as men are continuing out of work, but really a lot of it is centered around some of the homeschooling things. What would you say to men who are now in the home maybe 30, 40 hours more during a week than they would be otherwise? What are the best things that they can do to deal with their children and the idle time that they have where they're not getting to go to work? How can they still have that warrior spirit at the home?
Well, it's a great question. And I think I can bullet point for it real quick. First of all, don't see yourself as a victim in this process. See this as an opportunity. Now, that's a hard shift to make. But if a man's sitting home feeling victimized, maybe he lost his job or he's furloughed, so he's going to sit around and drink whiskey and eat Oreos and gain 40, 50 pounds and just see him and just wallow in his self-pity, he's not going to be what he's made to be. So number one, don't see yourself as a victim. See this as an opportunity. Number two, think of yourself as the culture keeper in your home. A man is meant to set the tone in the home. And I'm not just speaking, by the way, to married men, to single men, same thing. When I speak on university campuses, I tell roommates the same thing. You guys should be competing almost to create a noble, inspiring, encouraging culture in that dorm room, on your wing, with your band of brothers. And so you be the culture keeper. Let your word shape, fashion a positive, inspirational, a righteous attitude in the home. To have goals, target goals. Like I was saying earlier, I decided that I was going to work out even harder. I cycled a lot, played racquetball, but now, I got to get on the floor, push-ups, sit-ups, burpees, all the stuff. It's harder. It's actually physically harder. But I set goals. I set financial goals. I set academic goals and learning goals. I set physical goals. I encourage those around me, my kids. My son's 35, my daughter's 30, but we're all very close. And so I said, what do you want to accomplish during this time? When it's all over, what do you want to say that you accomplished? And they're tearing down goals, and we're encouraging each other. And my son's going to do that 50-mile walk I was talking about earlier with me. So he's up in New York where he lives, running stairs and everything to get ready for this thing. So it's a matter of understanding that this has not happened to you, but instead God has sent you into it, and that you can accomplish some great things. So really, this can be a time of accomplishment and achievement and advance. So on the other side, you are actually able to say, as it says in Psalm 119, it was good that I suffered, that I might embrace God's ways. And that's the approach I've had to this situation, to this season.